Greetings, neighbors. Welcome to another episode of the Perfect Sense podcast. We are celebrating America Saves Week, and I am thrilled for today's conversation because we're going to focus all about saving. So while we've talked about many different topics on this show, one thing we can always reiterate and reinforce is the importance of savings in your financial wellness plan. I am thrilled because I get to welcome longtime friend of the show, Savannah Brown, back to the podcast. And for anybody who's unfamiliar, Savannah, would you mind just taking a moment to introduce yourself and let the folks know what it is you do here at SAFE?
Thank you so much, Alex. My name is Savannah. I am a community development specialist here at Safe Credit Union. I work closely with Alex. We're out and about in the community, and something about me, I like to go work out. Wellness is really important to me, and financial wellness ties right into that.
Absolutely. Well, welcome back, Savannah. It's great to have you here. I'm stoked because we are obviously launching like our video evolution of the podcast, and it's really exciting for us to get to kind of collaborate in this space once again. And we spend our days in the trenches, right? We're always like out there promoting financial education, trying to engage with different audiences. And as we celebrate America Saves Week, and more importantly, Financial Capability Month, I think it's really great to set the stage and talk about savings as a behavior, as a habit. And to that point, let's just kind of jump in. Like, what is your take on why savings is such a critical piece of any financial wellness plan?
Savings is a habit that everyone should be able to build upon. It really is going to provide stability, and that stability helps during certain life transitions like making big purchases or the unforeseen, such as, job changes or having to deal with emergency expenses.
Yeah, I think that's a great take. And like, one way that I kind of like to illustrate the idea of savings is like, this is your scaffolding of one which everything else is built, right? So there will be hardships, there will be obstacles in anybody's life and anybody's financial wellness, trajectory. And I think if you build that strong foundation of savings, it really not only uh, prepares you for things that might happen that are unexpected, but it gives you that solid structure to come back to and prop yourself up when you need that extra help.
Yeah, it really is the foundation for financial success. Even if you're starting with a dollar, a lot of people think that you have to start with a lot of money. That's not the case. You're building a habit, and that habit's going to take some time, and you're going to face some challenges as you're building that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Like anything that we do that we want to be successful at, you don't just wake up and decide, I'm going to be good at this thing today. Right. You're like, I got to practice it. I got to put it into action and recognize that, like, yeah, there may be some speed bumps, but like, we're going to do okay. We're going to come back to why it's a priority for us. And
Yep.
if we have that sort of North Star continually guiding us,
Yeah.
it sets the stage for success, not only for now in the present, but hopefully for years to come.
Yes, truly.
So, as we are very familiar with this credit union ecosystem and this mantra of people helping people, I think it's really important that we demonstrate how we give back to the community. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on like how savings supports families and communities.
It supports them in many different ways. So the biggest thing is stability, right? A family that incurs lack of savings is going to have a lot of financial stress, and that's going to impact every aspect of your life, how you approach conversations with your children, how you go to work every day. And so having that little bit of stability will also help to change the mindset of money from being a negative one to a positive one. So that's going to also promote some in family positive conversations around money. For the community members, having any small little foundational help when it comes to saving, that's going to help build stability for all of the future goals that you have, whether it is to start a family or you have other types of financial goals in your life.
For sure. And I gotta say, like, I really appreciate how you touched on finances as a stressor because there's data that shows like a significant portion of the population identifies personal finance as their key stressor. And when we can start to address some of those issues, not only does it alleviate that stress, but there's there's dividends beyond that, like just being able to sleep better at night or being able to focus on other aspects of your life that you want to improve upon. And so I think that's such a key thing to acknowledge of like, if you feel like you're going through financial stress, you are not in it alone. Like
Right.
most of the population knows what this feeling is like. It might not be the same experience, one-to-one comparison, but that feeling that comes along with wanting to be better at managing your finances is like very prevalent.
Yeah. And the other side to that too is when you are less focused on the financial aspect, the financial stress of it, now you can focus on those other areas in your life. Like you mentioned, you can start focusing more on your career and getting a certification or improving your education or even looking at different opportunities for you, your family, and everyone else.
For sure. And I think even to the point of like speaking back to community, one thing I love, especially when I have like younger folks that I'm presenting to, right? And maybe they're not going through as much in terms of like thinking of their monthly expenses and this, that, and the other thing is really like you can make your money work for you and you can create a plan where like maybe there's a cause that you really care about
Yeah.
and you want to have an aspect of being philanthropic, right? Like it's great if you could be a benefactor who gives like tens of thousands of dollars to a cause. Like we all want to be able to do that. But even just building it as a component of your overall plan is great because you're like, hey, maybe in my plan, I'm going to put 5% of my money away to give to charity, whether that's, animal shelters or cancer research, any of those things, right? And I think it's great to just kind of let folks know that you should let your values guide how your money works for you.
100%. And it helps motivate you too, because now you're not just saving to save, you're saving for a bigger purpose.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it's all well and good, right? When we kind of talk very optimistically and glass half full about
Yeah.
having a savings plan. But one thing we really need to acknowledge is that there are pain points, right? And so, just kind of given your experience and especially in the nature of the type of work that we do, what are some consistent barriers you find that community members are struggling with when they're trying to like put this plan into action?
There are economical factors, right? Living paycheck to paycheck can make it really hard to keep money in a savings account. Additionally, housing costs are really expensive, figuring out transportation that's reliable and every other stressor that adds into our life. We also find that people are in a catch up cycle. So, relying on crisis types of loans, such as payday loans, to get by. Which can be more costly in the long run and eventually lead to an endless debt cycle for people. And so, those are pretty constant barriers that people experience. And then additionally to that, there's this myth that you have to have a lot of money to be able to save. I talk to people all the time and I tell them that it is a mindset shift from thinking that $5 is not enough to put in an account. At some point, that $5 is going to grow into something more great for you. In addition to that, as you start building that habit, it starts becoming a little bit more fun. And you're like, how can I find other ways to add into savings? So I think it's really a mindset shift from I can't to I can. And how do we be really strategic with the money that we do have? Because again, those economic factors can really put a strain on us.
I love that perspective. And I kind of, as you're saying that, what I'm thinking is like, so many kids, right? A lot of us growing up had an experience of having a piggy bank. And obviously, we're in a different time now where cash isn't as ubiquitous as it used to be. But like, where did we lose that part of our philosophy of like, hey, even pennies and nickels and dimes will add up to something eventually, right? Like, as a kid, it's just something that seems to come naturally. And I feel like as we get older and we start to kind of experience life a little bit more, we're always much more critical of ourselves and we're more like, it's like analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
You're like thinking more about like, how do I implement the solution than just like taking the first step on that path.
Absolutely. And I think nowadays, especially the younger generation, they're exposed to so much information that's telling them, just get your first $1,000 in there. Just get your first $1,000 in there. And for a lot of us, that's not a realistic goal to start off with, but that could be a long-term goal.
Yeah.
And so it's how do you break that down into something that's a little bit more digestible and easy. And I will say too that with younger generation, and I also can attest to this myself, is when you're told to save for an emergency that hasn't happened yet, that's an imaginary thing. That is not a tangible thing that you're saving for. So you're faced with this dilemma of, okay, I have money that I can spend. Do I have instant gratification and spend that money right now? Or do I save it for a possible flat tire that could happen later? I'm probably going to spend that money, right? And so it's getting out of that mindset of I'm not saving for anything tangible to I'm saving for future me, for that stability.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to be said for making choices now that your future self will be grateful that you made those choices. So, One thing I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't mention too is like obviously you and I have both spent some time in this financial industry, and so we're coming a little bit from a privileged position where like these things are on our mind all the time. We're always having conversations like this.
Mhm.
Most folks that are clocking in, clocking out, trying to feed their family, trying to make sure their bills are paid,
Yeah.
they maybe don't have that luxury of like always thinking first and foremost
Yep.
about their financial needs. And so I think it's worthwhile as we talk about these pain points and these barriers to just kind of acknowledge like sometimes part of the mindset shift is like it's easy to identify problems. It's much harder to find relevant like tools and resources that are going to help you solve those problems.
Yeah.
So I would really encourage anybody who's hearing this to start to chip away at that mindset and start to like look from a perspective of like, okay, I can't solve everything overnight, but if I can make one small step in the right direction, it's going to put me on a trajectory where I do have that sense of like, well, I'm so glad I made that choice when I did
Yeah.
because, any taking action now, no matter how small it is, will reap dividends in the future.
Absolutely. Yep. Those habits are really important.
So again, we're really coming from this attitude of like wanting to uplift, wanting to empower anybody who's taking in this content. And as we talk about barriers and we talk about pain points, one thing we really have to do is, hopefully provide some useful strategies and tips of like what can people do, right? Yeah, even if they are on a very, very tight budget or they live on very thin margins, what are some small actions they can put into place to kind of build this behavior up?
Start automating some type of transfer into a savings account, whether that's weekly or every time you get paid. That automation is really going to help you not have to think about the transfer so much. You can set that up directly through your employer, or you can set that up online through like an automatic transfer. And I say start with something small that's easy for you to take care of. Something as small as $5, right? If you go and get coffee once a week, take that and transfer that into your savings instead. If you have reoccurring expenses such as streaming services, maybe sacrifice one of them temporarily and then automate that to go automatically into your savings instead. That way, these small little habits are building up to that longer habit. It takes 21 days to build a habit. And so, building that up over time is going to help you. And also, as you visually see your process, that's going to motivate you as well. Ooh, I got my first $100 in my savings. Now I'm ready to meet my next milestone. One thing that I will say too is celebrate your positive financial habits. Do not celebrate your negative ones. So if you meet a milestone, have something in place so that way your brain knows that, oh, I have a reward system for meeting these milestones. Instead of, ooh, I had a bad savings week, I'm going to go treat myself to a shopping trip. And yes, I'm speaking to myself as well. But building those habits in, it really does help with the psychology of it as a reward system. You know what? I'm doing a great job. On to my next milestone.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's like I think that is oftentimes how we fall into bad habits is it is sort of like that instant gratification. It's like
Mhm.
I'm doing this because it feels good in the moment,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it really is serving me for the long term.
Right.
And so I think that's a really good call out because like yeah, you do have to kind of restructure what are you viewing as a reward, right? And like when do you really get to relish that win? And instead of like saying, "Oh, I saved $100, now I can go spend that hundred
Right.
bucks," like I've saved $100. Now let me get to 200.
Yep.
After that, double it. I get to 400, right? And you start to see that exponential growth. And so I love that you call that out. I think it's really valuable.
Thanks.
As you know, you've been on this show before. And so one thing that's very important to us is really, honing in on this idea of setting goals and creating a pathway to achieve those goals. How does savings play a part in that, especially when we're talking about building financial freedom?
It can be really challenging to think long term when you are living paycheck to paycheck or with limited income, right? You're not even thinking, how am I going to retire or how am I going to get that house? I'm thinking survival mode right now. And so, something that I encourage is if you have that mindset, you're not quite sure if you're able to get to that, start with the long term goals. That little bit of hope is going to allow you to align your savings habits to meet that goal because you are absolutely capable of achieving home ownership, of getting a reliable transportation, of being able to save for retirement. These are big milestones, but very exciting to think about. If you start with that long-term goal, work your way back, you can then have your short-term goals align with that. And it's also going to help you align with your values, much like you were mentioning earlier, which is very, very important to keeping those dreams alive.
Yeah. And what I might add on to that is, again, like, think selfishly a little bit, like, kind of put yourself first and foremost and say, like, what's important to me? If I think of that long term goal, if I think of that 5 year in the future, 10 year in the future version of myself, what would I like to say I've accomplished? Right. So for some people, it's like, I want to further my education. I mean, I'm in my early, I guess, mid 30s now, and I just completed my associate's degree. I know you also were on that trajectory recently, and it's so inspiring to kind of know that, like, those options are always out there if you're willing to pursue them, right? Like, financial freedom may not mean home ownership to everybody. Maybe somebody's financial freedom is like, I want to work on my terms. I
Yep.
want to own a business, or, do that thing that's been very passionate for me. And I think that's a great place to start is
Yep.
like, yeah, look at it from a 30,000 foot view and get more and more granular until
Yep.
you have that action plan.
100%. And one thing that I will say, and I feel like I say this in every episode that I'm on, comparison is the thief of joy. There is no actual timeline for when you need to accomplish these things. You can start over at 30, you can start over at 40, you can start over at 50. There should not be that pressure of meeting a certain deadline at a certain timeline that leads you to having these negative feelings about yourself or the goals and steps that you're working towards. So, keep that in mind that comparison is the thief of joy. You see these people living these certain lifestyles and you feel like you should be there. Know that you're exactly where you're meant to be in life, and if that's something that's important to you, your mind is calling you to a deeper purpose, right? You want to meet that goal and align yourself with that. You have the possibilities. You can do that.
Yeah, and to that point, like, we're so bombarded by stimuli, right? It's like there's the social media, there's news, there's like, if you're looking for it, you can find doom and gloom in every corner of your algorithm. And I think to your point about comparison being the thief of joy, like, it's funny how now, like, your memories will come up, right? Like, something you'll get reminded of 7 or 8 years ago, and maybe you're like, man, I wish I wasn't dating that person at the time. Or like, you can kind of look at things from a glass half empty perspective. And I think another kind of piece of this when we talk about like mindfulness and like wellness as an idea is like, you've really got to relish this moment that you're in, because like, if you're too busy looking in the rearview mirror, that's going to stifle your progress. And if you're also, again, looking at what other people have or don't have, you're not focusing on yourself. You've got to look inward. You've got to like focus on this particular moment, because if you can make the most of today and repeat that over and over and over again, you might be surprised like where you actually end up in the future.
Love that.
Before we wrap up, I do have a lightning round for you.
Woohoo!
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, excellent. So,
Jeez.
first part of the lightning round is, what's the financial goal that's on your radar right now? What are you working on?
Ooh, paying off credit card debt.
Beautiful. What's your plan?
So, did a balance transfer that was really helpful, especially saving on interest and doing it that way, and also minimizing how many payments I have to manage. Just like, thank you, keeping it all in house, which is nice. And so that is my goal. Once the credit card is paid off, that high interest debt, investing, baby. That is going to be next. Retirement, maxing out those contributions, and yeah, building that life.
Let's go. I love it. Okay, last question is, we're obviously local to the Sacramento region here at Safe Credit Union, so I would love to get your take on, do you have like a favorite small local business or restaurant that you like to go to?
Ooh, okay. So right here in Folsom, actually just tried it recently for the first time, Coffee Republic. So the owners are here local to Folsom, really great little coffee shop. They also have delicious food. So if you haven't been to Coffee Republic, definitely check them
All
out.
right, what are your menu recommendations? What are you getting when you're there?
Okay, their oatmeal, phenomenal. And then they also have a breakfast sandwich that's really good too. I just went for a protein shake. So if you're someone who likes the little protein shake here and there, they also have those.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Savannah, as always, it's been a pleasure to chat this conversation with you. I am so excited for all of the things that we're doing for Financial Capability Month, and you're a huge piece of this team that adds so much value to the work that we do. So thank you for joining me for America Saves Week, and I look forward to the next time we get to do this.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on the show.
If you'd like to learn more about SAFE products and services and how we can help you, visit our website at safecu.org and schedule an appointment with one of our professional experts today. SAFE is federally insured by NCUA and is an equal housing opportunity lender. The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform on topics surrounding financial well-being. This podcast does not constitute financial, tax, or legal advice and may not apply to your individual situation. You should consult with your own financial, tax, or legal advisor for specific information pertaining to your individual situation. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the participants expressing them and do not necessarily reflect those of Safe Credit Union or any of its officials.